constructed. Ice Age. Cold lumber, metal, cores, heat. Kill the old people. Food, 4x. 4x. 4x.
The cold. An enemy far older than man. Hardly given thought in the convenience of the modern world. Cold is not an entity in itself. It is the lack thereof. Lack of heat, lack of energy, lack of motion. The flashpoint between animation and entropy. The act of the universe becoming still again. The cold tendrils of annihilation are patient, until every man is laid to rest, every plant withered, every fire is silent soot, until every star in the galaxy exhales their last burst of heat. Death will loom as certainty. What's the point? How cruel of the human psyche to comprehend death, to know inevitability. But it may be our greatest strength. The fear of death has us dream up better lives. For ourselves, for our children. Dream of better worlds with fewer hardships. Motivation to move mountains needs only adversity and the spark of the human spirit.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
Is what I would be talking about if bipartisan factions didn't gridlock my city into killing itself and deposing me over actual identity politics, and possibly a bugged game state. But I've got a narrative to push, and I'm a politician, goddammit. My platform? Depose my platform, because my coworkers deserve to be tarred and feathered. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Welcome to Frostpunk, where your chances of survival are slim and your first major choice is to seal club or exile grandma. A world where decisions are made on the whims of whatever radical factions has the most bodies behind them to transmute into asses into seats in Town Hall Square. A game where the children do in fact yearn for the mines, and New London is having a hard time dealing with the isolated incidents of knife crime. At what point does a tragedy become a comedy? Because I think it's in the numbers. The settlers of New London struggled and perished in the Great Storm, each life lost inched closer to unsustainability, towards the tipping point of eternal entropy. As the captain stayed their course for salvation, and forces of his creed rose up in high towers to oversee mourning masses as the triage clinics let the sick die in droves to save the few they had supplies for. Now, a city block freezes to death, and my food output is a net positive. It's a common apathy in video games, the disregard of life. It's one I felt in a particular scenario in the original title. The scenario, The Refugees, is a situation where another generator town blew up due to mismanagement, and now hordes of both unwashed and washed peasants look for salvation in your city. Many of them are sick from the long trek in the cold, and this is where the triage center comes into play. I am not interested in saving the sick. I have not the food nor housing. So in order to still look good, the dire ones will be rolled into the street to die, and we'll shoot up the healthy looking ones with some coke and morphine and get them back on their way. The only reason I was comfortable approaching Frostpunk like this was an abundance of a particular resource, one which Frostpunk 2 has in spades. Though, what I found so perplexing about this game is that I rarely had to spend lives for my ambition. Frostpunk 2 isn't hard. I decided to run a mine and gone cold. I ran out of building materials, so I decided I'd get a quick endgame screen for the B-roll and kill the run. I shut down the generator for a year before they finally booted me. 3 days in Frostpunk 1, and your city's only inhabitants would be unwilling ice sculptures. This frozen hell humbles all, as the pilgrims say, so what gives? I should be strung up and steamed like a Maine lobster, but instead, this is a meta tactic to get people to sign peace deals. It just feels wrong. It's in the laws. Every time you had to come up with a solution in Frostpunk, it always felt like you were slicing a finger off to save your forearm, which is just an insane sensation for a video game to draw out of you. While there's a few unsavory options for you to choose in this one, they never feel required. So I didn't pass any radical laws because I'm just trying to make an ideal society. But I'm a level with you, ideal is boring. Because politicians arguing on whether we should make high-quality goods or bulk product isn't as interesting as trying to figure out which tech piece or building is going to save your city from total collapse. I did have fun with Frostpunk 2, exploring the icy plains to find survivors, supplies, and stories was just as engrossing as the first game. But there's no urgency. Civilization is no longer surviving, it's trying to rebuild. Which makes everything feel just much more mundane. The anxiety of wondering how long you can survive without coal, or food, or being in negative 50-degree weather is just gone. A whiteout, the final boss in the first game, came and passed with basically no interruption to my city's workings. Frostpunk 2 tries to compete simplicity with complexity, but its complexity is arbitrary. The problem I have with this game can be easily quantified at this impasse. Do the children learn trapping or arithmetic? It's both. It's fucking both. It's always both. A man should be capable of shoveling the coal, cooking the gruel, fixing the radiator, trapping the seal, and algebra. Specialization is for insects, and they died in the first frost. My gripe with Frostpunk 2 is the gripe I have with humanity as a goddamn large. Once a population reaches critical mass, once the group names and armbands start cropping up, it won't be long until the whole world is binary. Black and white. What the hell is nuance? That's something the liberals made up to keep our children out of the coal mine. I initially loved negotiating with the factions, because they would just demand good ideas. Like, great, I'm glad we agreed. Ventilated workspaces are important, and the next thing I know, they want concentration camps, and they're smashing all of my fucking pots. But why are they smashing my pots? Well, it's because I settled a new town in a biohazard. Fair enough. But I cleaned the biohazard. What else do you want from me? Well, possibly their son, but he's not coming back. I made the decision to send him into the toxic dump for the sake of progress, but looking back on it, the Pilgrims' demand for Winterhome was just another publicity stunt to get people on board with expanding. So it is expediting progress towards embracing the frost, but it costs people's lives. When survival demands, we ration food, leading to starvation deaths. No one celebrates on the corpses. Well, unless...
I was making money hand over foot. Literally. Somebody lost a hand or a foot, I toss it in the soup.
Well, that's all a lie.
But that's the thing about progress. It is the ambition of man to use all the resources at his disposal to build a better life for himself. But when our leaders start viewing their constituents' lives as a resource to be spent on their vanity projects, you've lost me. I'm not sold on Winterhome. We're doing just fine, slowly expanding and establishing relations with our neighbors. I've played plenty of Frostpunk 1. I know Winterhome is a dump. Just leave it alone. But that's how the game goes, so now I gotta deal with whichever piss pants whose dreams I didn't make reality. Do I look like a goddamn Make-A-Wish Foundation? Both my first 2 runs were ruined by completely asinine circumstances. Reason 1. I didn't set up New London as a penal colony beforehand, so when the admittedly telegraphed Civil War exploded onto the scene, I couldn't fix the desolated industry districts or incarcerate the rioters, leading to a depletion of trust and being exiled. In my second instance, I did everything right. No tension, high faith, 3 factions loved me, couldn't declare peace due to a broken mechanic. Frostpunk 2's politics don't make the game more interesting. It just makes an entirely new, enigmatic system that seems to exist solely to roadblock your efforts of making an ideal society. And if that was the point you were trying to make, then bang up job, lads. I still hate the government. I don't want Frostpunk to be hard or grim because I like pulling the ladders out of my Sims pools, nor because I get off to having my dick punched in by a boss. Frostpunk needs to be hard so its message doesn't fall flat. If I don't have to sacrifice Grandma, then I'm not going to. And if Civil War occurs solely on my pottery, I'm not concerned for my city, I'm just annoyed that I have to build another prison district. I could absolutely see radical factionalists infiltrating and holding oil districts for ransom on the old dreadnought. Whoa, suddenly there's an insane supply line issue that adds emergency, stakes, intrigue on how you deal with such a catastrophic problem with the resources you have at hand without being ham-fisted. I don't think you shouldn't be able to strive either, but if it comes with the territory of booting up the game, then it just doesn't feel earned, and it makes the main conflict a lot less punchy. I enjoyed Frostpunk's evolution into Dieselpunk, and I will not let go of that cheeky little side grade. The new map, new mechanics, and at the very least a more nuanced attempt at government are all welcome additions. But Frostpunk 2's quest of environmental dominance just didn't resonate with me. I hope these guys keep trying though. Maybe something of a return to form as the colonies make a braving expedition back to their homelands. I love this universe, and I'm giving it this much shit because I want it to succeed. Now I am not a game dev, and I have no clue if this will ever reach anyone who can actually enact anything, but I kinda want to see him go all the way. We've already expanded by exponents and by decades, and now you leave this little rambling message of splitting the atom, of setting the atmosphere alight. I hope you see what I see. A perfect trilogy. a perfect trinity, a capstone for a current evolution of energy. I want to see all the catastrophic problems of making a nuclear reactor in your shed. I think it would be oddly fitting to see the same impersonality at an atomic age where such decisions do have to be made, and I do hope they have to be made. But that's just spitballing, and my Fallout binge might be seeping in. And despite my griping, Frostpunk 2 was absolutely made with the same love as Frostpunk 1, and I have faith that our stewards will lead us to greatness. Now, citizen, your communal duties are simple today. Hit the designated like and subscribe buttons below, and cast your vote on whether I should be steward of this channel down in the comments. I will fight you in court over it. Finally, I'm pleased as punch to announce my first Patreon member. I've assigned you to the coveted Communist Christmas Goblin because you are a gift. Thank you very much for your support.